Bro, off the bat, I just want to say that acting that I saw in that prison cell was some of the best acting. Obviously, I've never really witnessed acting in person to that level, obviously behind the scenes, but I was seriously impressed.
Oh, thanks, man. Yes.
This podcast is powered by Dis-Chem Living Fit. With a wide range of supplements and fitness products, they have the perfect product for you regardless of your goal. Dedicated and committed to providing expert sources of information that you can trust and rely on. They are here to motivate, guide, and inspire. Dis-Chem Living Fit, making healthy living easier.
Yeah, that was an intense script and a storyline. So that was one of the best or better scenes that you witnessed. Yeah, because it can sometimes become just normal everyday thing, which is also a difficult thing to act. But that was quite deep layered, and there was a history behind that scene coming up to that. Yeah,
and it's actually obviously I saw now 7 Laan released the promo that particular situation is coming out now. It just came out this week or whatever.
I think it started 2 days ago, and now it's going to be a continuous storyline for long, actually. I've been back again for a similar storyline, and it just carries on because it's a long thing to resolve all the different plot lines for that specific storyline, because it's my character's plot line, it's the vet, it's my mother's character's plot line, so it's everybody coming together. So it's been a long time coming, and that's one of the reasons why my character Rikus left the show. He went to Belgium to get away from what he did. So it's kind of slowly but surely wrapping things up and explaining things that happened. Yeah.
Well, Andre Lotta, as people have heard, you are an actor. You have been on this podcast before, and it's a great pleasure to have you on here. It's a great pleasure, mainly just because, obviously, just having you take out the time to be here, but also my love for television, movies, and, my appreciation for it. And, yeah, so thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. I'll always be here.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
So, bro, last time we didn't really talk about, the starting out, the acting career, the why. Actually, I watched the interview this morning where it said that you went to 7 different primary schools.
Yeah, that was quite hectic. So 7 primary schools. We traveled around a lot. My parents got divorced when I was young. I think I was 3 years old, just when my little brother was born. So I traveled between them, went to boarding school. So yeah, it was 7 primary schools all around, mostly Gauteng and Northwest, which is difficult at times because you kind of can't settle in. But at that stage of my life, there wasn't any inclination of doing drama or acting. I knew what movies were, obviously, but I didn't know what acting was about. And my life revolved around sports and academics. So yeah, 7 primary schools, it's kind of, I spoke to someone a couple of years back, and they said 7 primary schools, that's the developing phase of a young person's life. And being in 7 primary schools, you should probably be screwed up. It's like, you find other ways to cope. And I think in some sense, I kind of escaped in my own imaginary world. And I think that is where the kind of actor maybe were born. I'm not sure.
Do you think also possibly, having to, because you moved around so a lot, you almost were put in so many different environments with so many different children, and those are the situations when you're growing up. Those people are harsh, they're very mean. Bullying is to a large degree a massive part of growing up. So did you almost have to put on an act sometimes to pretend to be more confident, or pretend to be a certain person that maybe subconsciously, like, you're putting on this act that kind of maybe also got you into acting? There
were moments, obviously, to protect yourself, obviously. And when my brother went to school, he was 3 years younger than me, so I started had to protect him in a way. So you kind of put that facade up, you the big oak, the strong oak. And because I was good at rugby specifically, you kind of had that kind of respect from everybody, because I was quite good at playing rugby. So you have to put on that like bravado acts, like you are the man. That happened, obviously, a couple of fights and stuff like that. And when I was in boarding school, that was the biggest like shift for me, because now you're away from your parents. It's you and your brother. Obviously there's teachers and like, Kose's father looking after you, but in a sense, you're kind of alone. And what was I, standard 2, standard 3? So you're still quite young. Brother was grade 1. That is extremely young for someone to be away from his parents. So you kind of put on that act, but it didn't last long, because I think people kind of realized what I was about at a young age. And I made good friends. There were one or two people that I really, kids I made friends with, and they kind of, protected you in a way or hung with you. But for the bigger parts, it's that initial phase when I entered a school was difficult because it's like, who's this new kid? And I vividly remember, like, say 3 of the 7 primary schools, the first thing the guys asked me, can you play rugby? So I was like, yeah, I can play rugby. And as soon as we started practicing, they're like, okay, cool. And I think that's where the respect started. But also, there comes a stage where I realized I'm not going to be here for long. So you kind of not settle. So you make friends, but you keep it fluff, you keep it up, light. You don't want to go deep,
like
because
surface level.
Yeah, you can't really go deep. And I realized that at a very young age, which you shouldn't, because when you're a kid, you just have to explore, which I did wherever I was. But I think by standard 2, I kind of realized I can't now just settle in because I'm not going to be here for long. And obviously, what your parents' setup is, so I'm not going to be here for long. So then you kind of put up an act because you have to survive for that year or whatever it is. But I think I kind of realized in standard 4 when I moved back to my father, my stepmother, this is going to be it. I'm going to settle here now. That's when I moved back to the East Rand. So I think that initial 5 years of primary school was, now and again an act, but it was mostly putting up that bravado, that kind of, one of my biggest escapes was Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme. So you've got that in your mind, so you kind of, I'm the man. And I was quite active and strong as a kid, so I think that also helped me in a way. 1 or 2 fights on the school grounds, and then people were like, okay, cool, let's leave this guy alone. So yeah, it was a combination of going into myself and putting up that wall, basically. Yeah.
So almost a 2-part question now in terms of, you never had to be a class clown or or put on those kind of roles because obviously you were good at sports.
Yeah.
So you never had to, because a lot of people, and usually with actors, there might be, an outcast and then have to, be the class clown or be someone that's so over the top that, that gives them attention because they might not be your straight line sportsman type of person that gets attention. So obviously you garnered the attention through your sports and through
sport
your
and academics. Yeah, that was my thing. Yeah, I was, like I said, from a young age good at sport, and my academics were also quite good. I think I also escaped in my academics. I knew that, and weirdly enough, from an early age, I need to make this a priority. I need to really focus on this because everything that's been told to me from a young age is that if you qualify with a degree, good mark, degrees at school or marks, you'll have a success. And I think that stuck with me. And then the sport was just something I love and also immersed myself in. So yeah, I never really had to be the class clown. I was obviously funny here and there, but my thing was just be good at academics, and then the teachers like you. I mean, that's just how it happens. And be good at sport, and then you just kind of like, Afrikaans school mostly, if you're good at sports, back in the days when I grew up, you kind of become the center of attention or a focus point because you can keep up the school's name at sport events. So yeah, it was. Actually in high school I started becoming a bit of a clown.
And those surface level friendships and relationships with people, do you now enjoy completely diving into a particular character and going really deep because you maybe didn't do that when you were growing up?
Yeah, that to me, that's the one thing that I experienced when I studied drama. Is you can immerse yourself in someone else's life. So you can kind of put yourself on the back burner, observe yourself in a way, understand yourself, because that's also part of my method, but going into someone else's world, experiencing their thoughts. Yeah, when I was younger, for me also, I observed a lot. I did. I was also sitting there and just checking out, maybe now and again, joining the conversation up until maybe high school. So I think there was maybe three guys that I really made friends with, and I can still remember them. Obviously lost contact, but I think that is part of it. I think my whole being an actor and the way I work as an actor is partly how I grew up, how I couldn't really connect with people, or I thought I couldn't because I'm not going to be along. And then when I found that 1 or 2 people, I really connected. So I think delving into, I kind of understood people quite well from a young age. I think maybe it's some protection thing that happened to me. I don't know, from some source. just to protect myself from people really taking advantage of you, because it can happen, especially when you're alone. I mean, boarding school is a tough place to be. It's where I went to boarding school, and as a primary school guy, it's quite tough. So I think that added to it, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. In terms of your acting, we're kind of going up and down, but that's fine. In terms of I was listening to a podcast the other day with Matthew McConaughey, and he was saying on the set of Dallas Buyers Club, only when they wrapped did him and Jared Leto actually meet for the first time, because they stayed in character the entire time throughout the production. Do you ever go to those extents when, separating yourself from the character?
I do. I often do. It's difficult with soap ongoing because it's ongoing, but and soap specifically, I do it in a storyline. In a storyline, I always tell my wife I'm about 70% in the character the whole time, or in that story, in that mindset, in that world. It's difficult in long form because you have to have a normal life. Like with a movie, it's month 2, 3, you can submerge yourself and then get out of it, and then the next project is a year later, which they do, but we can't. So I do it per storyline, and when I do a film, I try to stay in that world. With the storyline with Steve and Laan, most of them I kind of stayed in that character for about 80% of the time. You can't really you can't do it like the Americans do it here, if it's not a movie or a series, because you still got to communicate with people on a different level, and they don't understand. The one thing they'll say, "Oh no, this guy's a diva. He's a I think he's a big shot." Where I think they kind of know what the process is about. It's not foreign here to like the crew and the people that aren't actors, but it is weird if I get there and I say, "No, call me Rikus, call me Robbie, call me this." I'm like, "Are you crazy?" So I understand that world.
Matthew McConaughey to that extent, and Jared Leto, and they are crazy to do it like that.
It takes a lot.
Like Heath Ledger, what he did in that apartment for the Joker, there's no other way to look at it other than that's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. It's extreme. I mean, him, Daniel Day-Lewis, one of my most favorite actors, he literally, when he's on set, from principal photography till wrap, over the whole period of the movie, you have to call him his name, President Lincoln or whatever he's playing. That is crazy in a sense. It is crazy, but I think the world there is catered for them, because me as Andre, I can go to a set, be that character, but if I go off set, I need to go to spa, I need to go to get my groceries, pay my bills, spend time with friends and family. It's difficult. If we have that, because I mean, I can't for a month not spend time with my wife and friends. It'll be weird. You can, but I think it damages that relationships. And I think for me specifically in South African context, when you're Matthew McConaughey or Jared Leto or those guys, you get paid quite a large sum of money. So you can do it, and then for a year or whatever, take off and spend time with your loved ones. And that's what they do. Then they spend time with their wife and kids. Not that they don't when they're shooting the movie. But I mean, I can't do it on a daily basis because I'll be alone, completely alone. I'll alienate people from me. So as much as I want to do it, and I do it at times when I find this is the right storyline, this is the correct movie for it, then I do it. I did it for a movie, short film we did last year called Wegbreek, and I played a psychopath, a doctor psychopath that murders people with his brother. And it was it was a week. So the build up to it, obviously the prep was like 2 weeks for me. And then that week, while shooting the film, I was literally there. And my wife actually says, you kind of crazy.
Did you stay at home with the family during that period?
So I went with I stayed on set basically because I observed everybody. I kind of wanted to feel, specifically the people I acted opposite, I wanted to feel their energy, where they placed everything, pitched everything, what the director does. Kind of observing, because that's what that character did. He observed, and then he went in and did his thing. Is kind of like a Dexter meets horror movie thing. So I stayed on set, but I wasn't myself. My wife and a couple of people that know me quite well said, "You weren't yourself." And also the big scene for that character was shot in one night. I was 4 hours, like a moving camera type of setup. So then it was kind of like a theater play on camera, basically it was. So for that specifically, I chose to kind of stay in that mindset. It kind of, it's dangerous because you find yourself losing yourself in a way.
Do you feel maybe that you find out parts about yourself that you're actually like, no, I didn't know that I was actually capable of thinking this way or being this way or acting this way.
That is absolutely true. I found that even when I did Villa Rosa back in the day, that was in 2011 or 12, I played a sociopath, and that was a year and a half. Soap, obviously ongoing. And about 6 months into it, we had a function or a party with friends, and I had this glazing. I didn't know. I was sitting there having a beer, and my best friend sat opposite me, and he looked at me, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm tired." And he says, "No, there's something else." Because he knows me from primary school. He knows me from standard like 4 or 5. So he kind of knows how I tick and how I vibe. And he said, "No, there's something wrong." And I'm, "No, I'm fine. Went on, and I was just slightly bumped by someone, and something happened to I didn't see it. I was just reacting. And he said, "No, guy, wait, let's go home." And then afterwards, he told me, he said, "Listen, you've got to find that." And I knew it. I knew I was submerging too much into this character. So I find myself finding out, because those kind of characters, you unlock, or you go to dark places. And I believe everybody's got dark and light. You just naturally glide towards the good part of your nature or the bad part. I think everybody has that capability. So as an actor, you kind of have to open up that world, or kind of understand that world, and it's scary. It's sometimes scary because, when I play someone that needs to kill someone, like with Wegbreek, I've never killed someone. I've never tried to do it. Now you have to do it. This guy that's what he does. He finds happiness and peace in that. And to my mind, it's like, how can someone find peace with doing that? And it's a very fine line because as an actor, you can't judge your character. That's the first thing I learned as a student actor is never judge your character, because the moment you judge your character, you won't be able to play him. So if I play a murderer or something, if I from the get-go judge that character, I'm not going to be able to really submerge myself in that world. And it's difficult when you play a killer or something like that. So you find something that connects, because everybody has something in common. If small things, love for your family, love for your dog, love for a craft, whatever the case may be, you find that, and then you play that without judgment. But I think there are parts, as my career goes on, and the more characters I play, the more storylines I play, the more emotions, thought process I unlock, I realize, we as humanity, we are kind of screwed in a way, but it can be fixed with just there's I think there are ways. I find ways to kind of just get out of it, because I find sometimes that you kind of dwell on that aspect of what you've just thought about or what you've just done, and sometimes it catches me. But I find kind of ways to just let that go and stay true to who I am, or who I think I am.
I find myself, and maybe it's people might think is maybe a screw loose, but sometimes, like, if I'm not really high energy and wanting to talk, like let's say I bump into someone at gym and I'm really not high energy, then you put on this act and become the person that is high energy enough to interact with this person and talk to them and, give them what they're seeking out of the interaction. Have you found a lot in acting that you've taken into the real world where you're in a situation where, let's say you don't enjoy meetings, for example. You're like, okay, I'm gonna be this character that enjoys meetings and really enjoys, doing what I need to do in this particular situation, and kind of just faking it in that situation.
I think, definitely. I think we as humans, we have to adapt according to a situation, because when you're between four walls yourself, you can't necessarily always be that in a public setup. And when you're in different situations or setups, you have to, like you said, what that situation needs from you have to give it. When I'm in an important meeting, I can't be, if I wake up, I'm in a bad mood, my wife was ugly with me, and my boss is bad, but I'm in a meeting and this is going to get me work, I can't bring that energy in, so I have to put on an act. So I think definitely in the normal, daily life, you kind of adapt to the situation. For me, when I don't feel up to it to go out, but I have to go buy stuff or go out with my wife, I'm kind of irritated. But when someone approaches me and they're like, "Hi Rickers, hi Robbie," I can't be rude to them. Not just because they watch the show and they support my career, but because that's a person that knows nothing about my issues. They're just there, want to see me, want to have a chat, even if it's 2 or 5 minutes. Then you kind of have to put on that act. And I don't think it's fake. I think it's not alienating people around you. When I'm at home, obviously I'm not feeling well, or I've played an intense storyline or character. My close knit family, they understand, because then I need time alone. I'm a bit agitated maybe, or extremely tired. They understand. But for the general public, or when I go to a meeting or meet a friend that I haven't seen for a long time, you kind of you do put on that front, yeah, and give that person what they want out of this interaction, because you can't just be rude. And there are actors and famous people that are rude because they just act on their impulses, which I don't think is wrong in a sense, because you have to be who you are. But I think for longevity, for yourself, for your career, for relationships, you kind of have to, yeah. If I'm in a meeting every time and I'm in a bad mood, I won't get jobs. Not that I'm in a bad mood always, but sometimes you're tired and you just don't feel up to it. And the world out there is tough as it is. So now you have to go and slot into those spaces. And to protect yourself also, I think you kind of put on an act. And I believe it shouldn't be too far from who you are. You shouldn't put on a complete different act. But I think you do enhance certain parts of it. I definitely do. And I think it in the long run, it's beneficial to you. Yeah.
Now with you and the characters that you've played, are you still actively, because obviously you now pretty much on many different places and many different sets week to week, like it often changes. It's not like you just on Seven Laan. Are you still now even like going out for auditions, or are you at the stage in your career where you're just getting offered roles every now and then?
I think it's a combination for me now. I've been in the industry now for about 15 years, and you kind of build a reputation, you build a body of work. So there are stages where you get asked, do you want to do this, or are you interested in it? And that is fantastic. I just think South Africa doesn't, again, cater for that unless you are a superstar like a Marius Weyers or, Sandra Prinsloo. But then you still have to audition, because I think in my age category and my look and everybody that there's too many good actors to just offer willy-nilly. So you still have to, I think what happens is maybe they narrow it down. They want maybe a few actors, and then they audition or screen test, or what they call as a chemistry test. If it's playing brothers or lovers or father and son, then they have to obviously test the chemistry, because they can't have Pete and Fani, two brilliant actors, but when they put together, there's no chemistry as father, son, or brothers, or whatever the case may be. So there are times where they offer me something, and it's then up to me to take it. But yeah, I still audition a lot. I think for the biggest parts, they won't always know everything you can do, because the things that's out now, movies and plays and TV stuff, doesn't show everything I can do. So when I want something that they might think I can't do, I have to audition. So yeah, it's fun being freelancer now again. I haven't freelanced for 7 years when I was part of Seven Laan, but now I get the opportunity to stretch myself a little bit more on a weekly basis, because I'm with Seven Laan today, next week I'm with Binnelanders, next week I'm on a film set. So that stretches me in terms of I have to play a complete different character. But I still audition daily, or weekly at least, yeah.
Is that maybe slightly more stressful at times, because okay, well, roughly this week, if I'm just on Seven Laan, I'm at least going to go on in 4 days a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, I only got a scene with Seven Laan in 2 weeks, Binnelanders in 3 weeks. Like, what? So is there more pressure on you to find different roles?
There is. Like I said, I constantly go back to Seven Laan, so that's kind of, I know there's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 calls a month, or whatever the case may be. So that is cool, but the stress is definitely on when you freelance, specifically when you get my age, because now you've got bills to pay, you've got a life to manage. I think when you're younger, it's a little bit easier to hop between things, but when you get older, I mean, I'm turning 40 next year, and it's, you can't just be willy-nilly about it unless you have some passive income. So we're working on a couple of things. The good thing is that I was always wise with my money and investments and how you do things. So you can have that small window for playing, but also not too much. So the pressure is on, in terms of, I know I have to book something next month. Otherwise, I have to go into my savings. So the pressure there's on, but then it's a good pressure for me. It's like, I now need to go out and smash it. And then the things that I'm part of already, like I said, that's just like an ongoing thing. But it's like, you got to weigh it up. being permanent on a thing is good because you get a salary, you get to act daily, you get your rhythm and your process, and that's fantastic. But now you lack, or you're missing, playing different characters, doing that hustle side. And for a long time, I haven't really focused on the hustling side of my career in terms of the marketing side, the advertising side, what I can achieve there. I've just done acting because, in a sense, when I studied and after I studied, I saw myself as a purist. I'm just an actor. I'm not anything else. But in this industry, you've got to be everything. You've got to learn what the show business is about. So I know what the show is about because that's what I do on a daily basis. But the business side, for the past, say, 3 years, after COVID, I started realizing that there's something to capitalize on that. So I think the last year, I'll say 2 years specifically, I've capitalized on that a little bit more to be able to be a little bit more free. Not that I won't be permanent on any show again, but for now, I think that is why I belong now. Because also, Cape Town is a big industry. All the overseas things are being filmed there. So I think that's the move I also want to make. And you can't make that move if you're permanent on something in Johannesburg, because then you're permanent. So it's kind of keeping all the doors open in a way to be able to grow in that sense. Because I spoke to my wife and my agent about this. If I don't do it now, then I won't do it. Not that I'm old, but you get to a place where you're like, okay, cool, it's not for me anymore. I'm going to stick to this, or maybe a soap. So, but yeah, being a freelancer, and now it's difficult because also when you get an audition, it's also they see you as the character that you played, but you've got to show them, no, I can do something else. And then, okay, you can play something else. You've got another rhythm as well. So in that sense, the pressure's also, it's quite hectic. And when you do an audition for international markets, because they don't know who you are. Yeah. So that's purely what you can bring to the table. And that's exciting, but nervous. I thought before an audition, I am so nervous.
Yeah, can you imagine?
I am extremely nervous. But as soon as the camera rolls in, I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm in the world. So, yeah.
What is your dream role? Or let's say something that has been and is existing in a movie or a TV show or something, a particular character. What would you, say? You were just talking about Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. Is that what type of character that is in existence that people can obviously reference that you that's your kind of role?
There's two kind of archetype roles that I still want to play and that I've always wanted to play. Like I said, when I studied, I was a purist. I just want to act. So specifically a character like Dallas Buyers Club or Jared Leto's, what's that movie called? Requiem for a Dream. Or was it Ethan Hawke? No, it wasn't Ethan Hawke. It was in Trainspotting. Those kind of roles, obviously going deep, going dark, that is something that I still want to do. Slightly got opportunities in the soaps and movies to do that, but also because of the nature of South Africa, you can't really go to those extremes. It's kind of, it's risky in a way.
Like you can't lose 40 kilograms because your character has AIDS.
Exactly. I did actually lose a lot of Ks. I did a play where I played a British soldier that was in the bush taking a prisoner to her execution. And for that role, I literally lost a lot of kilograms. And it looked at that way. And people were like, yes, I lost muscle. I lost just to look weary and wiry. So that, because not that I won't do it for television, but theater for me, it's like, I'll go there. I'll literally, if the time allows, but we had a long time before opening. So I did do that. And for most of the parts that I play on television, it's healthy, fit, strong guys. So then that's just who I am. I train and try and keep a good, muscle, your composition or whatever. So that's one thing. The other, I've always, that's a childhood dream. I want to play a superhero, man, or an action star. So like I said, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Sylvester Stallone, those were my icons before I knew what pure acting was about. Not that they're not good actors, but that was what I grew up with. So it's superhero. And now I've watched the entire Gotham on Netflix. I'm now currently watching Titans. So something like that would be, it would be something that I would love to do.
Are you, to geek out a little bit, are you like a Star Wars fan or a Lord of the Rings? Or are you those, those original George Lucas or...
No, not really. Okay. No, my friends are. So I like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and those kind of things. That world for me is flipping awesome and interesting. But I've never clicked onto Star Wars.
Okay.
I've never, or Star Trek. It's never been. I've watched it with friends. My friends are super geeked into that. I've never really. I've watched with them, but I don't know. It's cool. It's good, and I know what it's worth.
The reason actually I wanted to go into that because of how Disney is kind of ruining, in my opinion, a lot of the ethos and the lore of the original stuff.
Yeah.
You know, with like, I mean, I absolutely love The Mandalorian now.
Oh, yeah.
That's related to Star Wars, but then when you get certain things where they kind of Disneyify the show, where
happen.
Jack Black is coming in and playing with Baby Yoda and feeding him, and then it kind of just dilutes it a bit of what it actually was about.
Yeah, it definitely, for me, the Marvel universe is starting to do that within the Disney, because I'm a huge Marvel fan. Recently became a DC fan. I'm obviously Batman and Superman, but what they are doing now to me, for the Marvel things, because I followed Marvel since the inception of the first big ones with the
Like
Russo
the first
brothers.
Iron Man and stuff, yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool, that's cool. And now when they started doing the whole Disney thing, for me, it's like, okay, cool. I'll remember that. That is my reference now. The new things I'll watch, but I think it's that they just want to capitalize. But for the essence of Marvel and then also DC, I mean, you know, they struggled to compete with Marvel in a sense. But then when I watched Gotham, which is the origins of Batman and all the villains, that was done really fantastically. I really enjoyed it.
And it's relatively low budget because it was a CW show, I think, which is much less of a budget than obviously what Disney has.
Yes.
Because they've got the whole Disney franchise backing it, where CW, just that network, obviously was funding it.
So, for me, I mean, they will obviously milk it for as much as they possibly can because there is still a market for Marvel and DC and superheroes in the world. And what interests me about those kind of shows like Gotham and Titans is the origin. I like seeing the origins of it. Because I never really read the comics as a kid. I only watched whatever was on television. And so seeing the origins, how obviously every channel or producer or, you know, story develops it differently or tells it differently. And I think there are different interpretations, even in
like
the comics.
that Gotham isn't canon from, you know, what the movies are with Batman.
Yes.
But I mean, also, if you look, especially you mentioning DC, if you look at The Dark Knight with Christopher Nolan, that was in its own, you know, little chamber.
Yes.
Then you had, you know, obviously when Zack Snyder brought Man of Steel and all of those things, those were going into canon and they were going to branch off of that. And then, you know, Shazam was part of that. Yeah. But then Zack Snyder got cut and then they brought in Joss Whedon and then things kind of changed and then it fell apart. And now James Gunn, he's taken over. So now they've kind of changing it up. Like, I mean, now with Matt Reeves' Batman, that was a fantastic. I mean, the cinematography in that for me was absolutely incredible. Yeah. And that now is an Elseworld story, but still relatively in canon. So it's just like Earth 2 or whatever it is. So I think now they're kind of finding where they're going to go with it. And I'm really excited about it.
Can't wait.
I'm sad that Ben Affleck isn't Batman anymore. There was a lot of things about him, but I thoroughly enjoyed him as Batman.
I read something saw something on TikTok about pairing up the different Batmans, and obviously I like the Christian Bale. It's the Dark Knight, it's more emotional.
He's like pretty much the OG Batman for me because I grew up. Obviously, all the previous Batmans were already out and like 10 years old. Whereas when I was like 10 or whatever it was, then Dark Knight came out. Then for me, like that was my Batman.
That was the Batman, Ben Affleck for me is the Batman in terms of the ruthlessness.
Yes.
He's big, he's brawn, and someone spoke about it like he's that Batman. He's the brawler, the breaker. Yes. And also him as an actor, he portrayed it for me so well. That's how because the first Batman I saw was Val Kilmer. That was the first Batman I saw in cinema. I'm like, okay, cool. That's a different. That was the first interpretation I saw, and the next one was that I saw was what's his name? Man, he played.
George
Birdman.
Clooney.
No, Birdman. The Birdman.
Michael Keaton.
I saw his portrayal. I was like, okay, cool. That's completely different. That's
Birdman.
what I understood.
Birdman was a very good movie.
That was fantastic. And I think, that's also one thing that but more as a director and a filmmaker, if that is my next step, is to do something with fantastic cinematography. That's 1951. What's the movie? Also, they did like kind of a one shot.
1917.
Yes,
the war movie.
Yes, that to me is so fascinating. And when I'm on set, obviously we can't do it here, but I'm like, why don't we shoot in one shot or try different things? But we don't have the time. And sometimes the experience for that kind of thing.
Well, speaking of one shot, have you watched Extraction with Chris Hemsworth, sorry.
Chris Hemsworth,
With
my
Hemsworth.
my man.
So there was it's called a one-er, eh?
Yes.
So there was one particular scene where he kills and fights and drives. And jumps off buildings, and that was obviously shot in one sequence.
It was crazy. I saw the behind the scenes because the director was actually
the Russo brothers.
Well, the producers were Russo brothers, but the director was Sam Hargrave.
Okay.
He was Captain America, Chris Evans' stunt double, and he's a stuntman. But he directed that film. And because he's a stuntman, he actually operated the camera himself with that thing. So I saw behind the scenes where he was on the car in front, giving the camera over. That blows my mind.
Yeah,
I want to do something like that.
It's ridiculous.
Now, for instance, one of the characters or type of characters I want to play is like that, like Chris Hemsworth did, and Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling in Grey Man.
Yes.
I mean,
or
I'm
like
a huge...
even a John Wick.
Oh, we did a film, like a concept film, and I think you saw it.
Yeah.
The Swartcut thing that I did, and the producers, directors, or creators of that specific short, they had the John Wick inspiration of
Weren't
fighting.
you kind of also like in a Daredevil type outfit?
Yeah, so they reimagined the Swartcut outfit, so it was still a tactical suit, like a Batman suit that they made. Rion made it. He's a stunt performer. He kind of designed it, made it. It's tactical, obviously, because he played my double, and you had to move in it. And I wore that suit, and I literally felt like a superhero. It was this whole thing, and it was crazy. So that's one thing I would like to do. And like Extraction, Grey Man. I mean, those guys, the Agbo films, the Russo brothers are just making phenomenal things.
I don't know if you watch like the early work in like, Community and those kind of shows.
Oh, yes, yeah.
With that kind of comedy sitcom, is there a market like that in South Africa? The same way that, Big Bang Theory, all of those type of shows? Because is it mainly just soaps in South Africa that do relatively well?
I think soap does well because it's in your living room every single day. It's comfortable. You sit there, you've got your food, you've got your fridge and safety of your home, and you can watch it. So I think that'll always be popular and always be the most famous. Getting people to theaters, cinemas, getting people to watch plays is difficult because you got to go out of your house. And
especially after COVID, it's taken a big chunk.
And I mean, I went to the cinema the other day, and it's for me and my wife, just tickets and a bit of popcorn, it's like $400-500. So not everybody wants to pay that kind of money to go and watch a movie. So it makes it difficult. So I think that's why that is a difficult genre and market to push, theater and cinema, but it's the loyalty behind it that I think still makes that survive. But in terms of comedy, I think we are a comedy nation. If you go watch previously, and that's a different generation as well, but the Leon Schuster, they watched Leon Schuster. It was
Leon
something
Schuster was actually brilliant.
Across all cultures and races, they enjoyed the comedy behind it. So we want that escape. And whenever
what was that movie? There was like 2 or 3 of them, Bachat.
Yeah.
Yes, like that was hilarious.
That is what people, that takes people away from what's happening. Yeah. Not that they don't watch the serious drama-driven shows. So I think there's a huge gap for comedy in South Africa. I think it needs to be approached the right way. It needs to be the right scripts, the right directors, the right producers. And there's a couple of people that really does well. I think Hotel, that was on Kykenet, was fantastically done. And that was comedy. Subtle comedy, not slapstick. He's... gly op 'n stuk piesang. That was done fantastically. So I think the people are there. We just need to be commissioned for it. And I think we are moving, what I see from my perspective, into a very much dramatic, weird world of filmmaking and telling stories, because I think the world around us is dark. But we need to activate the comedy side of it again. So but in terms of myself playing comedy, I've never seen myself as a comedy actor ever, not even when I studied. And I find it difficult to do because you have to be extremely skilled to play comedy if you don't have an extremely good script, because also script is a very important part.
That's also, I think, what people maybe don't understand is it's more difficult actually to do comedy than it is to do drama.
I struggle. I did one farce with Toby Cronje, which was easy because he was there, feeding off him, seeing how he does his thing. And for him, it's natural. That's what he does. That made it a little bit easier, daunting because you're acting opposite him, but easy because now you've got the master that's with you. But when I get asked to audition for a comedy, I get extremely nervous because I don't think I need the right director and script. But we did a thing now, Blitz Bulletin, which is kind of a blend between The Office and Scrubs, which I think they did extremely, extremely well. It's a young filmmaking crew that did that, and that for me. I watched now 5, 6 episodes, and it's quite funny. It's not your in your face fun. It's like The Office kind of.
No laughing, backtrack. And all of
that's not needed.
Yeah.
I mean, just make good comedy, and people will laugh, and find the comedy within the situation. That's what it should be. Situation comedy, sitcom. So I think there's a genre for it. I would be very careful if I audition or get offered, because I need to be surrounded by fantastic people in that genre for me to be able to be confident and comfortable in that. Because when you try to be funny, it's not going to be funny. But when it's written funny and the situation is funny, that becomes funny. And when I did Blitz Bulletin, I think the group around me was extremely good within that world. The script was good. The situations were written well, and that made it funny. And then I felt, okay, cool, I can do this. But I will never see myself as a comedy actor. I don't think it's my strong suit. But that's just my opinion about what I can do. But I'd love to do it on a bigger scale one day again. Yeah.
I think also when I'm watching a show and it's really well written, it's less actually sometimes about the acting. It's way more about the dialogue and the back and forth between characters. A little bit, obviously, if it's a sitcom, let's say, about the directing, but most of the time, 90% of that show is going to be successful based off how well it was written.
How written and delivered with the actors. So and that's why I say, if you try to deliver it funny, it's going to be like, okay, people see through it. It needs to be that situation created, and that makes it funny. Like Community. The other show I watched, man, what was it? It was about Silicon Valley. Not Silicon Valley.
But Silicon Valley is also a classic.
Exactly, yeah. So those kind of things. And when I see it and I want to watch it, I'm like, I want to do that. And maybe I can do it. But I don't think that is now currently available in South Africa. And I think the people that are doing it is a very small, close-knit community, which is fantastic because they keep it there. They know what they're doing. Like Hotel and those kind of things, it's fantastic. It's written well, it's performed well, shot well, and the situation makes it extremely funny, which I think when some people try to be funny and I'm like, oh, please, God, just switch the channel off. It makes me cringe for watching it, just trying to be funny. Yeah, but me, for myself, nah, I don't think it's my strong suit.
Action man.
Action, drama, tragedy. But also, if you can watch like Jim Carrey, I mean, he's the fantastic comedy actor, but then he does Number 23. He does Truman Show, which is also a comedy, but I mean, it
was serious for him.
Dramatic.
It was funny, but it was serious for him.
Why he never won an Oscar for that, I would never know, just because he's a comedic actor. So comedic actors can be fantastic drama actors, but I don't think the other way around is always possible.
And I think what's special about comedy is most of the time it's funny. You know, I mean, if you just even look at Modern Family, most of the time it's just humor, but then there's so many situations. Like I've cried many times on Modern Family.
Every time, yeah.
And I mean, it's a fantastically obviously, look at the awards that they've won. Obviously, it's a good comedy, but it's real. It's very, very extremely situational, relatable. There's so much character growth, and obviously when it does 8 seasons, whatever, there can be character growth.
A lot of it, yeah.
But that's when, it's really funny. The humor's great. The writing is good, but then it draws you in with that drama aspect of it.
That's the playing off of it. That's what makes that kind of comedy for me good. It's like you can laugh, but the next moment you are moved, and then it's playing off those two emotions with each other, and that's when the comedy is even more funny, is because the situation can also be tragic. That's why Modern Family is so good. And I watched Extras, Ricky Gervais, and I mean, you laugh, but there's always a serious point of it. It's his character's longing to belong. And that to me is sad.
Afterlife?
Oh, my man.
Like that was moved. That was incredible.
I cried every single episode. There was not one episode I didn't cry. And then also laughed like, oh my God, this is funny. This guy is really, and it's his situation again. Yeah. He's so depressed, he's so rude, which is not a funny thing in itself, but what he does with that between his other people and the situation that is created is so funny, and what he says, because he's intelligent, the character, and obviously Ricky. And then it takes you to this world where he just breaks you down, and it's like, oh my word. That last scene where he walks with his dog and wife, and then that was just, I just cried like a baby. Then my wife was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Just watch this episode."
Yeah.
And she bawled her eyes out.
So with you, any goals in terms of going into putting a production together for yourself, writing it, or directing, or?
So my next step is directing. It's difficult to get into that world. It's difficult if you don't have the right backing or script.
Because I saw when I was on sets in Binnelanders, I don't know her name, I know her stage name, Vanessa. She was
Ingrid,
directing the one episode.
Yeah.
So is that possibly something where you kind of on set just speak to I don't know who and it's like, guys, give me an opportunity for this?
So there is an opportunity, but there's also a lot of red tape and process that you need to follow. So it's not as easy as it seems. They need to select you, and there's a whole process behind you being able to, or they educating you or coaching you, and then you actually directing on that soap. There's a lot of red tape there. So I have to, if I want to direct my own things, get my own investment or pitch probably with a production company. So that is the one step I want to do. I've never thought of myself as writing my own things. Like I said, when I studied, it's like, you write this stuff, you cast me, I act. That's what we do. But the older I get, the longer I'm in the industry, I realize that you've got to create your own work. And it's difficult because a lot of people say, just create your own work. How do you do that? You have to have the right backing.
Who's paying for it?
Who's paying for it? And not all actors are good writers. But I think I'm a good storyteller and developer. So I can develop the concept, but then I need a script writer to put it into a script so that it actually makes sense within scenes. I tried it, and to myself, it looks bad. But in the future, I definitely want to direct. I definitely want. I've got a couple of concepts that I already put to paper as a concept, not as a script necessarily. That in the next foreseeable future, I want someone to script it for me so that it becomes a movie or something like that. And then I go and hunt for the money, because there's one thing. It's an action driven thing, and then I've got one like boxing meets MMA, which is already done, but I think I've got a different angle on it, and it's not been done in South Africa yet. And we've got the EFC, which is huge, and our guys are starting to move into the international market, Drickus and Cameron. So I mean, we're kind of making name as MMA fighters, and even back in the day, boxers, we had big names internationally. So I think that's, in a South African sense, as blockbuster as it can be, it's something that I would like to look into, because I've done a couple of things that's Mnet Productions, and they partner with British or USA productions, and then it's a bigger budgeted film or series. So it is now possible in South Africa to do that, but you have to have the right backing and script. So that is definitely the next, say, 3-4 years, because I think it needs to be a process. You can't just hoy a script together and tomorrow it's ready. It doesn't work like that. Like you said, you need a good script. So that's in the foreseeable future, something that I would like to pursue. And then like I said, next year I'm turning 40, and I've never really tried to break the international market or the movie market in Cape Town. So that is one thing I would try to do in the next year or two. Go and see if that's something I would like to do. Yeah.
So where can people tune in on their televisions right now currently?
Currently, I'm on 7 ongoing with Rikus. I'm doing a couple of things with Binnelanders as well. And then I'm not sure when it's airing, but I'm playing 2 or 3 episodes on the new season of Reika, which is on Mnet. I think it'll be the second part of this year. It'll come out. Reika in itself is a fantastic series. So I'm in the second season playing a character that goes through a lot of things.
You can't tell us what?
Not really.
Okay.
I just had a lot of prosthetics, but in a short period of time, he goes through the most. So that's on Mnet. I think I'm not sure when the debut date is, but it's that. And then, if people watch theatre, I will be in the festivals. I'm just waiting on confirmation, but we did the Parrot Women for Market Theatre, which will obviously take further into festivals. So currently that is the thing. And then obviously Kyk Story Films, but that's also second part of I'm not sure what the dates are.
Well, bro, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, Andre. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Especially just being able to talk about movies, and because it's a big passion of mine, and I appreciate you coming out and taking the time, and I look forward to watching that scene on television that I witnessed, obviously behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's gonna happen currently.
Awesome.
In the next couple of days. Thank you so much.
Bro, thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Cheers. This podcast is powered by Dis-Chem Living Fit. With a wide range of supplements and fitness products, they have the perfect product for you regardless of your goal. Dedicated and committed to providing expert sources of information that you can trust and rely on. They are here to motivate, guide, and inspire. Dis-Chem Living Fit, making healthy living easier.
Feelings falling down, sitting